Join Tim and Christina Madden, co-founders of Executive Career Upgrades, on their podcast, the Executive Career Upgrades Podcast. As an executive in today's highly competitive job market, it can be tough to succeed. However, with Tim's nationally recognized career advice and Christina's mindset expertise, you can reach your full potential. Tune in to upgrade your career and get ahead of the competition.
Streaming to LinkedIn. We not streaming to LinkedIn? Give me a second. Okay, now I think we're live on LinkedIn. And hey, everyone, welcome to the Executive Career Upgrades Podcast. And then, yeah, why don't you introduce yourself, Christina, while I send a text real quick, because we a little...
Yeah, Tim always kicks off the podcast. I'm Christina Madden, co-founder of Executive Career Upgrades and Chief People Officer of Executive Career Upgrades. And some of the things that Tim typically kicks us off with is that if you are not part of our top free resource, which is the Executive Career Network over on Facebook, if you want to be part of a community where you have access to, other executives in similar situations, or some executives are hiring, but all things career are over in that Facebook. I think we actually had a Jeopardy question, ECU Jeopardy, yesterday at our Christmas party. And one of the questions was, hey, how many members are in our Executive Career Network? And
Do you remember?
12,300 people. That wasn't it?
Need the Jeopardy thing. No, it was everyone guessed 12,300 or 12,500. It's 12,400. You were close.
We'll have to see about that. So go over there and connect with other people that, are looking for growth in their career and get your hands on some great free resources.
Speaking of free resources, hey, we just launched. You can go to execupgrades.com/resources and get a bunch of free stuff. And you can get a couple things that cost only a couple bucks, like, help with writing your resume. It could be help preparing for an interview, the virtual setup guide, which, you got to know how. There's a lot of resources over there. So definitely go to execupgrades.com/resources. Hey, and do us a favor, as always, if you get any value for today, share this with a friend, family member, business associate, right? It could be just what they need, right, to truly accelerate their career. And that's what we're talking about this week and every other week, Christina.
12,400
correct
members. Is that what you said? You
Yes.
said 500.
No,
as you can tell,
go back and replay.
We're kind of competitive around here.
Chat. We got it live. So I said, it's okay. We'll tell her again. I said everyone on the Christmas party, they said 12,300 or they said 12,500.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people were doing that, but the answer was that.
Got it.
You would have got it right. So, hey, what we're talking about today, by the way, if you need help in your career, go on over to execupgrades.com/podcast. What we're talking about today is just strategic planning in your career, right? And I feel like we say the same things a lot, and I'm glad we do, because just like our mentors say, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. So let me just hit you with one, which is one thing. If you take one thing away from this podcast today about strategically planning in your career, here's what I want you to take away. If you sit down to actually develop a plan, you immediately just said you're 60% more likely to reach it. So if you don't remember anything we say today about the things you specifically need to do, right, to strategically plan your career until you are no longer working and you are into retirement, the biggest thing you need to know is, hey, if you do not take step one, which is to just develop the simplest plan, you will not achieve it. If you do develop the simplest plan, right, take one step in the right direction, you're 60% more up to get it. That doesn't make sense, right? Because how are you going to do something without a plan?
Yeah, guys. Apply that to anything in your life. You have to have a plan. Imagine if our troops, for those of you who don't know, fun fact that Tim was in the military for 23 years, but imagine if our troops went into battle with no plan. That'd be crazy. Or many of you might have had a pattern or cycle where you're not getting results in your life in any area, relationships, fitness, likely because you're not planning. So it's like saying, hey, okay, you want to lose 50 pounds next year? Cool. You want to be healthier next year? That's great. How are you going to do it? And it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to have a step-by-step plan to follow. And then what does Tim say? Start, then optimize.
Start, then optimize. Because it's not difficult, because we just actually got them recently. I got us. TikTok got me, guys. TikTok got me.
I'm excited
with
about
two
this.
good things. So we got one, and then we'll get into some tactics and strategies. One is we got what's called, I can say this on LinkedIn, it's called the Big Ass Calendar. Okay. The Big Ass Calendar is like, guys, like this big. Okay. By like this big, unless you're listening on Spotify. I'm putting my arms like really wide right now, right?
Probably 5 feet by 3 feet, if I had to
Something
guess.
like that. Yeah. And then what's on there is every single day of the year. So what are me and Christina doing, right? It's coming in the mail like tomorrow or the next day. We're going to start mapping out of, hey, what events are we hitting? What events are we going to sponsor, right? Because we want to hit some HR conferences next year. We talked about sponsoring some booths. We have to meet with our mentors. We have to travel to Scottsdale, to Miami, to all these different places. So we want to map out our year.
Well, and as your time becomes more of, time and energy is your most precious asset in general. But the busier that you get, the more valuable your time is. And you really don't want to lose control of that. And so one of the things I said to one of our assistants was like, hey, like, I don't want to like lose control of taking on too much. Think about it like this. You don't want to take on too much that's not like super fruitful, right? So when Tim talks about our mentors and business events that we want to hit, I want to make sure that they're the best ones and the ones that are filled with the most opportunity. So when I'm looking at these next 12 months, I'm able to plan really quarter by quarter and hit like the very best things and have a plan and, work in the family vacations with that as well. So
I got to interject real quick, because here's why. What happened? What was it? Q3 or Q4?
Yeah, it got
we
messy.
Unintentionally, ladies and gentlemen, since we did not plan our whole year, since we're talking about strategic planning, we noticed either it was Q3 or Q4. We were like gone for a week. We're back. We're coming back. We're flying to freaking where we flew. We're flying to Utah. We're flying to San Antonio. And then before we were like, man.
And it was all good things, but it hit me like, oh my gosh, I don't want this to happen again.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to go do those things, but maybe my time would have been better spent handling it a little different. And it was a lot on the family logistics as well. And the business logistics. So, hey, you have to plan out your time.
Yeah.
And this is a really hot topic right now, obviously, before going into January. I'm actually going to be launching a day planner, guys, probably mid-January. But one of the things that happens in that day planner, which mimics one of my other favorite planners, which is to write down your goals every day and twice a day, actually. And people are typically like, well, why? And it's just to get in the habit of understanding the importance of writing something down, because things just don't get done if they're not written down. So
what we're talking about is, hey, number one,
planning
without being overwhelmed, just sit down and plan. Okay. So we're talking about your career, right? So, and then I want to share my little TikTok thing, because someone said something about TikTok. Okay. Hold on. Let me write that note. So, hey, when we talk about planning your career, you need to think about right now, right? You need to think about, how long am I going to stay at my current job? Am I going to get promoted? Do I even like working here? Can I see myself here long term? Am I bought into the mission and the values of where this company's going? Right? So already you need to start. That's like step one, right? I'm sitting down and I'm essentially step one. Hey, self-assess, self-awareness. So number one, I'm sitting down and saying, hey, I've made it this far in my career. What is the next chapter for me? When is it happening? These are questions I'm just thought-provoking questions to you, right? So that you can get clear on what you want, because here's the difficult thing about goal setting. We all want different stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So you need to know what works for you. So you need to ask yourself these questions. So self-assess where you're at, be self-aware of where you're trying to go. Okay. Those are a couple questions that can help you. And then number two, well, look at them again, right?
Well, because they change sometimes and the priority of them change and some drop off. I like to think about it like a steak dinner. Mm-hmm. Somebody must said this to me at some point and it just stuck. But you have steak and you have potatoes and then you likely have vegetables. Well, I am only really interested in the steak, guys, like the the main course, maybe some potatoes, but sometimes things turn into green beans and things that aren't just that important to you right then. And you want to be focused on the most juicy goals. And they, like I'm just saying, they change sometimes. So write them down.
So, hey, so with starting to build this plan to strategically plan about your career, you need to sit down and put time on the calendar and say, hey, later tonight when the kids go to bed, right, I'm going to sit down and think about my career. And I'm going to ask me questions of saying, hey, where do I see myself in a couple years? Kind of what I just went over, right? Number 2 is this. Bring self-awareness to this continually. Maybe it doesn't have to be every single day, but maybe it's once a week. Maybe it's a little weekly check-in you have with your spouse Sunday nights, right? It's your little list of things to always think about. And then number 3.
Those conversations always go perfect and smooth, right?
Yeah. Number 3, you need to track your progress. Most of the time, and I know we always talk about diet and exercise just because it's the easiest points to track, right? Like for me and Christina, I just bought, this is back to TikTok, ladies and gentlemen. Me and Christina, I just bought some scales for us, okay? And they actually sync with your iPhone, right? And it basically, they're only $40. But what it does is when you weigh yourself after you take a shower or something, it automatically puts it into the cloud and into your phone. So I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, etc., hey, I want to track it, right? And I want to make it as easy as possible. Hold on one sec, Christina. So I want to make it as easy as possible. So it's one of those things where, like, I want to be able to get on the scale, and then I want to look later to monitor my results, right? Because most people have failed diets, failed, etc., due to many reasons. One of them just being tracking. So it's kind of like if you're going after that new job, so many people think they're putting so much effort, but when we actually talk to them about, well, what have you done in all of these areas? And it's like nothing. So you have to track your progress.
Which it almost always is nothing.
It almost is nothing. We've talked to people like, oh my God, I've been struggling for 9 months. Okay, well, what have you done? I've applied to 3 jobs and went on 2 interviews and I can't get a break. And we're like, that's like zero action, right? Or people who want to lose weight or people who want to get fit, but you know, they're just highly inconsistent. This is why doing a self-assessment and being self-aware continually and grabbing Christina's planner, right? So you can keep these things top of mind every day that's important to you. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Tim is not suggesting to buy your wife a scale for Christmas.
No, buy yourself one. Tell them that they can use it. Okay, so hey, we talked about self-assess. We talk about consistently being self-aware. If you don't do that, you're not going to get anywhere. And then what we want to talk about is setting clear goals. So we've thought about it. We've sat down to actually plan, to actually start thinking about stuff, to actually writing stuff down. Here is what you want to talk about in relation to your career. Christina, would you like to walk them through PPFs? Because they should probably do that with themselves.
Yeah, you guys probably have heard us talk about PPFs every week at this point, and Tim sort of touched on this a second ago. But as you're planning, so the strategic planning component that we're talking about, it should be based on your goals. And PPF stands for personal, professional, and financial goals. If you are familiar with Brandon and Natalie Dawson, you hear them use that acronym PPF all the time. And that's really where we got kind of addicted into that language. But it goes back to personal, professional, and financial goals, and short-term and long-term. So be thinking about that. And really, to take that a step further, what they're talking about is using your career as a vehicle to achieve those goals. That sounds like common sense, but it's not. You really have to put it into practice, because people go, well, wait a second. How do I use my, and we have this conversation with our employees, and it sounds a little awkward. Like, oh, well, how do I use my career as a vehicle to reach my personal goals? Well, hopefully you're seeking out to be in an environment that supports you in personal development. Maybe they have similar travel interests. Maybe the salary and PTO that you're pursuing will support the 1 week you want to go see whatever in the world. And then your professional goals, maybe you're a VP and you want to be an executive in the next 1 to 3 years. Okay, cool. What's that salary look like? What kind of teams are you, managing and building? And then financial, that kind of speaks for itself. Where do you need to be financially to be living the life that you truly want? And that all of this stuff, you can imagine how drastically different it is from person to person. So once you have an understanding and you ask yourself, okay, why do I want to achieve these goals? Then you can get into really career planning around that. And this is so, so important. And hopefully in the organization that you're targeting, or if you specifically lead people, you're having these conversations, because at the end of the day, all people care about are their goals. That's it.
Yep. So when you're mapping this out, hey, you have to know what's important to you. That's going to decide where you're trying to go, which no one can tell you where to go, right? So, hey, when we talk about PPFs, we talk about short term, hey, 1 to 2 years, midterm, 3 to 5, long term, like 10 or more years. It's not actually that hard to plan out your career. If right now you're a director of software engineering, right? You need to say, hey, within a couple of years, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. I should be doing this. And here's a straight path on how to get there. The problem people make is they never get started with a plan. And you know what they say? If you fail to plan, you what? Try to take a guess.
I don't know.
Fail
to plan, you plan to fail.
Ooh, you plan to fail. So, hey, with that being said, here's other considerations I want you to inject.
Let me pause here, because in the middle of what he's about to go into and what we just talked about, which was you create the plan. That's what we're talking about, right? So you create the plan and then nothing gets done. Typically, what's standing in your way in creating that vicious cycle is fear. Fear and mindset around belief. Can these things that I would like to achieve personally, professionally, and financially actually happen? Do I believe that they can happen for me? Do I believe that I'm worthy, that they can happen? Do I believe that God and the universe will support this? Do I even believe the opportunities exist for me? It typically, the stories that are going on in someone's mind are the exact opposite from that. I
want to share a story now, because it just happened today. Guys, I have a guy, a lot of people, hey, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'm sorry. I love all of you. I officially can't keep up. So remind me to get an assistant.
Well, we have AI. What's happening?
So, with that, a gentleman reached out to me today who has just a phenomenal career. And it just pained me that I'm looking at all these places he worked. He's branding himself well. He's been a president and CEO of like a mid-sized company, and he's doing all this. And he's literally DMing me saying he has no options. Like he was like, I have no options. And we know it's because of a self-belief lid he's put on himself, right?
It's the people with the most achievements that actually believe this.
Absolutely. And it just pains me, because I messaged him back and I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, you could do a million things. You could go be a CRO here. You have all this tech background. You brought this to market. You've done this. You've been the CEO of a mid-sized company. Like, you could do a million things. So please talk on more of the self-belief stuff.
Yeah, these thoughts that I have no options. That's what he said. I'm out of options.
I'm out of options.
I have no opportunity.
Yep.
That's typically not the underlying cause of those thoughts and emotions. Typically, I don't want to go too deep into this rabbit hole, but there is a big disconnect between this strategic planning thing that we're talking about and then people actually taking action and being able to achieve this. And they're the stories, guys, that we tell ourselves from childhood, which are, I'm unseen, I'm unheard, I'm unworthy. These are killer thoughts. These are the killer of all joy, all opportunity.
Well, so we don't have to go down that.
If this resonates with you, make sure to go over to. I don't make any money off this, guys. I probably go negative on this, but The Fearless Executive on Amazon. I think you can get the paperback for $5 right now. But this really uncovers the thoughts and emotions and actions or inactions of people in a job search and what happens, and it sort of untangles this whole concept.
But really, I want to get to the next section, guys. I know this is an important topic. Definitely go grab that book. But what I want to sum up and just give you 20 years of self-development in one quote. Are you ready? It goes like this. People that need to see it, need to see the opportunity, right? Need to go to the people that need to see something they're trying to achieve, right? Before they can believe it, are always going to have problems reaching their goals for their entire life. So let me repeat that one more time. People who need to see something, see proof, see it before they can believe it, they are always going to struggle in life.
And that makes a lot of sense. But let's say you are one of those people, Tim.
Well,
it is not hard to find.
That's half of it. Hold on one sec. You need to believe it first. Believe that you are capable. If you cannot believe you are capable of losing weight, getting fit, being a CEO, being a senior director, working at IBM, if you cannot believe it yourself, okay, you will never achieve it. But step one is to believe like, hey, when I'm mapping out my strategic goals of my year for my career for the next couple years, okay, if you do not believe it, I assure you, you will not achieve it. Sorry, Christina. That's just so important for people to understand.
Yeah, I help people with really bridging. So almost everybody struggles with being able to believe, being able to believe before seeing it. And I help people bridge the gap that exists there. So if you're one of these people that find yourself in like you can't believe anything because you physically haven't like seen it yet, we're really lucky because we're living in the age of information. So let's say you can go look on LinkedIn, let's say for example, somebody in similar age, race, position, just absolutely crushing it. So it becomes this like, well, if they can do it, I can do it sort of a thing. Outside of that, we're not looking for a negative thought like I'm out of options to go from, oh my gosh, there is like limitless opportunity. I'm going to land my dream job tomorrow. On the thought spectrum, it is absolutely almost impossible to go from a negative to a positive. So what we're looking for is something in the middle of the thought spectrum that lands you back to neutral.
Which is exactly this. If you're overwhelmed, take a pause for a second, because most of the time you don't have step one, which is what? To sit down and make a plan. Most of the time, all these thoughts are like fleeting so fast of like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You haven't set the time to just sit down and say, hey, hold on a sec. Let me sit down. Let me assess where I'm at. Let me write this stuff out. And if you don't do that, that's why these thoughts move at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Don't you think?
Yes, thoughts do move at lightning speed. So it's very hard to notice which thoughts are landing you in a negative thought cycle for sure. So you want to use your emotional radar. So if you're feeling, well, if your thought is I'm out of options, we already know the emotional frequency that's going to come from that. Or if you're feeling down and out, fatigued, depressed, sad, it's like, wow, what am I thinking that landed me there? And I'm sure you're going to figure out it's I'm out of options. So you want to look for thoughts that are extremely neutral. Like it could start with, I believe I'm worth it. It doesn't have to, you don't have to jump to, I believe that job's out there for me and I'm going to find it in the next few weeks, because you're not going to believe it. So this is the magic of being able to choose your thoughts. It can't be like a small t-shirt that feels uncomfortable and you don't believe it. Like that's what that would feel like. We're looking for that really comfortable, medium-sized fit that feels good. So I'm open to the belief system that I'm worth it. I'm open to the idea that I am willing and able to put in the work to try to do this. I'm going to seek help. I'm just throwing out some other thoughts that can bring you back to neutral and calm, because nothing gets done, like Tim was saying, with the overwhelm. So what we're looking for is just neutral, calm, so you can actually take action. And sometimes for those of you who lost a job, maybe it's I dodged a bullet. Maybe it's like, I'm going to take control of this. We have to look for neutral thoughts.
Yes. Mm-hmm. To do that, right? That's where I was going next with strategic planning in your career. You need to develop new skills. And when we say new skills, here's what people immediately think. If they're in tech, they think about the next thing. I got to get updated. If they're finance, they need to join some finance mastermind, etc. When really, what are some of the most critical things, Christina, for the good of the audience, that if they're investing into their skill development of the future, and they're trying to plan out their career, what is maybe one skill development that you were just talking about, which almost no one takes the time to invest in, Christina?
I think it was 2 podcasts ago, by the way, guys, where we literally talked about executive trends in 2024. So new skill sets that are appealing going into 2024. But one that comes up, I don't know if this is the one you're looking for, would be like
the one you just talked about.
The emotional intelligence part?
Super important. Yeah. Emotional intelligence. But think about this. If you can't get how to make, right? If you can't start to not maybe master, maybe one day, right? Only maybe a few people do. But if you can like increase your skill development on managing your thoughts a little bit, right? So you don't become super upset so quick. So you don't go to the most negative thing that could possibly happen inside the workplace, right? So just know when we're talking about strategic planning and we're talking about skills, sure, hey, leadership's important, right? But I would probably start with, hey, how can I shift my perspective on how I see maybe the scope of my workplace, right? Maybe how do I manage my thoughts a little better?
Because it dictates how you communicate with people. This is why we always start the conversation here. It's almost impossible for you to go into an interview, communicate your value, solve problems if you're in this negative headspace. Look, I hope if this person is listening, thank you for actually bringing this up. And we're not picking on you in any way if this was the person in Tim's inbox, but picture somebody who's like, I'm out of options, right? Now that person gets absolutely no help, doesn't plan, and somehow, some way lands like the ideal interview. Do you think that that person is actually going to be able to show up to that interview confidently and communicate the value? No, because this person's out of options. So you can't fake it until you make it, is my point. And you have to have the mindset dialed in, and you have to have a plan to tackle this.
Absolutely. So, hey, invest. When we're talking about strategic planning, we're talking about, hey, where do I want to work? What do I want to do long term? How long am I going to work here? How long do I have to be a senior director? What are my career aspirations, right? What are some of my professional, personal, financial goals? And then as we start to map out what that looks like over the next 10 years, right, which would be just a great goal for you, and then to stay self-aware week to week on if you're making gains on it. The other things is this, you have to determine, hey, what are skills that I need to know, right? What are skills I need to invest in? That is what I'm looking at right now in 2023. And I'm actually excited about it. I just told Christina hey, in Q2, there's this large, boring financial class that I want to go to, but I'm excited because I want to learn the ins and outs of more advanced strategies of financial modeling, et cetera. That could be boring to you. That's okay. Right. But hey,
I'm glad he wants to do it.
Like, what is it for you? Right. So it's not only what do you want to do this year with your career, man, what do you want to learn? Right. Do you want to be a more effective leader? Do you want to have more EQ? Okay. Do you want to learn how to manage your thoughts a little more? Or is it more administrative stuff? Like, do you want to learn about financial modeling or buying and selling businesses or mergers and acquisitions? Like, what is it for you? Most people don't take the time to map that out.
And if you have no desire to learn, you're dead in the water.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, hey, we've talked about these other frequently, Christina. So I'm just going to go over them. Hey, you have to research. You have to network. We talk about that all the time. You have to have mentors that are paid and unpaid, or maybe going back to college, or maybe hooking up with Harvard or Yale, taking a certification course for a couple $1,000 to enhance some skills there. We've talked about the importance of a personal brand, the importance to adapt. Hey, we're just reminding you of those things that go into strategic planning with your career as well.
And really, it's a combination of analytical skills, creativity, and effective execution.
Yes. So to get started, the first thing you need to do is just sit down. That is where most people struggle. They sit and say, I don't like my career. I don't like where I'm working. And ladies and gentlemen, they talk about it for 8 months.
Only 8 months? No, much longer than that.
Well, we've had some people like, I've been thinking about it for a while. And
years.
We always ask the question, yeah, well, how long? Well, a couple of years. Like, we value time a lot differently, right?
Well, somewhere along the way, there's been a lack of belief, a lack of self-worth to get to a point that you're staying somewhere for multiple years where you are unfulfilled. And let that sink in for a second. Where do you think your self-worth might be if you are in a job right now listening and you've been unhappy and unfulfilled, underpaid and underchallenged for multiple years? You might as well face it. You've got yourself a self-worth issue. And we all struggle with that, from time to time, but that's why this mindset shift is important.
Yeah. And it's so easy. Don't be one of the people. Please don't be this type of person who never plans for their career, right? Never plans to learn new skills and then looks back 8 years and says, wow, like I haven't made anything and I should be here. And because that's only going to make you feel worse. But I know since they tuned into the Executive Career Upgrades podcast, everyone tonight after work or after they're hitting their job search super hard, right? Getting in front of people. Because, hey, let's be honest, we are still hiring. Every company in America is still hiring. If they have sales needs, tech needs, data and analytics, data science, trust me, ladies and gentlemen, the executives at those companies and the people who fall into them are looking for great people just like you.
And if this podcast hit home for you, our last 3 podcasts leading up to this, forgive me, I can't rattle off all the titles perfectly to you, but they're all exactly how to tackle Q1 in your career. So those executive trends, the planning part, why you shouldn't be pausing your search over the holidays because no one is slowing down. So if you've got some extra time on your hands and this hit home for you and you want more details, go back a few episodes and dive in.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, hey, we are here committed, right, to making sure that you have a plan moving forward in your career as January 1 hits, because what's going to happen? A long list of New Year's resolutions. What's your New Year's resolution? Post in LinkedIn.
Man, I want to be in gym sales right about now.
I know.
I feel like we'd be crushing it.
Exactly. So, hey, remember, in January 1, the floodgates kind of open and everyone wants to transform their life. Gyms get busier, everywhere gets busy, right? And the same thing with companies are bombarded with new candidates, right? For the first couple of weeks. So, hey, if you haven't got some traction, if you haven't even started your career search yet, now would be the best time to step 1, plan, what am I targeting? And at a minimum, have your documents updated, right? Like your resume, your LinkedIn, making sure they're highlighting all your accomplishments. And if you need help in your career, go on over to execupgrades.com/podcast. We will see you next week for episode 112, the final episode of 2023.
It's 111 today. 111, my favorite numbers.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Merry Christmas.
Oh, my gosh.
Go,
Merry
go,
Christmas.
go.
Happy holidays, guys. We should have kicked it off with this. I
forgot. It's Monday.
See, everyone's wanting to pause like all their career growth and all of their goals because it's Christmas, but we've been like talking about like only our goals. And so I'm like forgetting it's Christmas, but hey guys, like thanks for being part of our community and we really hope you enjoy it. Merry Christmas from ECU to you guys.
Yeah. And on these special days, right? Just to give you another dose, take care of yourself on Christmas Eve and Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Like have a good time. Eat some good food for yourself. Get out and take a walk. Take care of yourself on these special holidays, right? It's just another way just to get an edge, right? Because I know everyone listening to this podcast is a high performer and we all want a competitive edge, right? That is the edge, ladies and gentlemen. Number 2, hey, huge shout out to all the troops that are not going to be home this holiday season, right? So definitely pray for our troops over there and, all of the places they are abroad and those that aren't able to spend time with their family. We support you. And until next week, Merry Christmas. Have a great day, everyone.